Hey everybody, welcome to the workshop. In today's episode, we're going to be following up with a project that I've been working on, which is trying to learn to do bookbinding. And so this was the last project that I did, and just as a reminder, it worked, came out, it looks okay, but I'm not happy with it. I want to continue to grow and get better. So that's what we're going to be doing today, is to do the new bookbinding with the new things that I've learned. I've got some new tools in here to help me out, like some new 3D printed items here in order to help me out. So I'm confident that we're going to be able to do an even better job today. So stick with me as we bind another book today on Adam's Workshop. Okay, first things first. First, we've got to go over the materials. So we have our book here that we're going to be binding. We've got some spine binders cloth. We've got some cardstock here. This is, let's see, 110 weight is what it is. We got some bookbinding cloth. Last time I used the faux leather for it, and I found that it was a little bit difficult to work with. So today we're going to do with book cloth. I've got some, there's different colors here. We also have our headband and tailband material. And if we come over here, we can see some of our tools. We've got a ruler, knife, bone folder. We got some spacers here. And this time I have 3D printed new spacers. So I found that I was going to have to use in the previous one some multiples put together in order to try to get the right spacing. And since I have a 3D printer now, this is a perfect opportunity to print some brand new spacers to go on the outside. Also, one of the problems that I had on the book is right here. There's typically a crease which I did not get on here, and where the book hinges. So the book does not hinge as well as it should. So I have also 3D printed some pieces. Kind of hard to see, but they're a half moon shape, which are going to go right here when I clamp it into the book press in order to get a good crease right here. So I've got this corner cutting piece. I've got some weights right here. These are machinist blocks. They're 1, 2, 3 blocks, so they're 1 inch by 2 inch by 3 inch. And they're heavy, so this way I'm able to, whenever it comes time to fold this leather over, I can actually have a weight to help me. We also have some assortment of brushes. This brush right here is a brand new brush. It's a silicone brush that I found from somebody else on YouTube that was using this, and they were liking it a lot because once the glue dries, it's easy to clean off, as opposed to these kind of brushes where you have to run them underneath the water and get them clean sooner. I also have my neutral pH glue. Some of these. My other finishing press, and then we have my book press over there. So these are all the tools that I've got and the materials. So we're going to have to get started with this, and the first place we're going to get started with is the book itself. So we're going to take the cover off, and we're going to need a knife. So all I'm going to do is just kind of score along this edge right here to get it started, and then we're just going to have to rip it right on off. And as you can see, that's all there is to that. It's pretty simple. Lay this to the side. We're not going to need that again. So we've got plenty of glue and some excess paper here. So now I'm going to take some time and I'm going to put it into the press, and I'm going to, I don't have my sanding block with me. I'll have to get my sanding block. And I'm just going to try to clean this up so that way it's smoother, doesn't have as many bumps on it. Try to get some of this off to get prepared to be able to put the spine cloth on right here. So let's do that next. Okay, I got the book cloth out. This is the one I'm using, come off of Amazon. And one of the big things about this is that it's used in repair, but it can also be used for rebinding as well. So that way, when you put the new book cover on, it will give it something to hold on to as well. So it kind of has a dual purpose of repairing the spine, strengthening the spine, and giving the front and back cover something to grab a hold of. So just going to cut off roughly that much. That looks good. Doesn't have to be perfect, and we can always go back and trim it later. Now we're just going to clean it up. Now I'm going to stop short of the top and the bottom just a little bit, so it's not coming all the way to the very ends. Okay, now we'll just glue this on. Now we'll just wait and let this dry. Make sure it's straight. Okay. Now we just gotta wait and let that dry, and I'll come back once it's done. Okay, now that the spine cloth has been glued on, I realized something. I did something out of order. What I should have done first was glue the end papers together, or glue the end papers onto the book, but that's what we do when we're making stuff. We make mistakes, and it's not about making the mistakes and feeling sorry for ourselves. It's about recognizing we made a mistake, learn from the mistake, so that way we can go forward. That's what I did on my other book, is I made some mistakes, but learned how to fix them and learned how to do better going forward. Now this mistake is not the end of the world. Yes, it is better to glue the end papers on before gluing the spine cloth on, but it's not too far gone that we can't do it. So I'm just going to make sure that it's pushed out to the side here, or pushed backwards rather, and then we're going to get back on here, and then we'll also glue on the head and tail bands as well, forgetting what it's called. So what we're going to do is, since I've already done this one of these books already, I already know that a regular, this is a 8.5 by 11 inch piece of cardstock, and so I already know that this right here folded in half is almost the exact size of this. Be very little trimming to do. So we're going to start off by folding it in half. I'm going to take the second one, do the same thing. And okay, this piece of paper just fell off, but that's okay. It's just a advertisement for other books, so we're just going to lay that to the side. No problem. So now what we want is we want the end paper to be the exact same size, height, and width of the text block. So we can just put it up to it, and it is the same, or almost the exact same width and height. It is so close. So what we're going to do is find a pencil. And we're going to draw a line around it so that way we know where to cut, which the edge is so close, but we're going to trim it up anyways. Okay, then we'll take just a sliver off of here, and we can do the exact same thing for here. Okay, now we can do it either way. I have a guillotine cutter over here, so we can use the guillotine cutter if you have one, or if you don't, you can just take a ruler, an X-Acto knife, or even a box cutter, whichever works for you, and we're just going to trim it down. Okay, we got that trimmed. We can do a quick double check, and both of them look like they're pretty good. Would say not perfect, but not perfect is okay. We don't have to be perfect. So now the next thing we're going to do is put a thin layer of glue right along this edge, and then we'll glue it down. And then we'll do the same thing to the other side. And before I do, I'm just going to take some wax paper and use it as a little protective barrier here, so that way we don't make a mess when we're gluing down our end papers. I try not to get it too thick, too wide, because the wider you get it, when you put it down and you go to open up the book, it will want to kind of pull a little bit. At least that's what I found on my other books. Now do the same thing to the other side. And if you have a glue bottle that you can just dip your brush into, that might be a little bit easier. I don't have one. Now we'll take this and we'll put it in the book press. Okay, now we'll just let that dry, and then once it dries, we'll come back and we'll put the headband and the tail bands on for the next thing. Okay, now that we have this out of the book press, we still need to glue on the headband and the tail band. So, very simple. We're just going to take it and have it be pretty much about the length, maybe just a hair's bit short. Okay. Now we're going to put it back into the finishing press and we'll glue these on. Okay, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to measure the width of the board, the text block. And even though I'm in the US and I do use Imperial, for a lot of projects like this, I do like to use metric. So when I'm doing bookbinding, I will use metric measurements. I do find it a little bit easier. So we want to get an exact width of this book. And whenever you're using rulers, rulers like this right here with a cork back are the way to go, because obviously we're going to be cutting things with a knife and we don't want everything to slip. So a cork back ruler is the way to go. And also on these rulers, if you can see as well, the measurement actually starts a little bit in from the edge. So this is something to be aware of, because if you're not aware of this and then you try to put it right up to the edge, which is what most people are going to want to do, and then you make your mark and say here it's going to be about 13 centimeters, 7 millimeters, something like that, then what ends up happening is you're going to be off, because then you're going to make that measurement, and then when you put it on there, it's going to be over, and now your measurement's going to be off. Your board is going to be too short. So always keep in mind what you're doing. So whether you're doing in metric or standard, it doesn't matter. Just make sure that you're using the same ruler, same style of measurement every single time, and be aware of the edge there. And so start at the actual mark. So here we're going to be at exactly 14 centimeters for the width. I'm going to write that down. And now for the height of the book, what we want is we want the height of the book plus 6 millimeters. So same thing, using the same ruler, using the same side of the ruler, centimeters, and starting from the mark here. And we're going to measure over. So we're at 21 centimeters. 1, 2, and 2 millimeters. And then we're going to add 6 millimeters to that. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we're basically at about 22 centimeters. And then lastly, we want to measure the spine. And with the spine, we want, there's multiple ways to do it. So you can take your book and then measure the width of it plus the width of one board, or you could even sandwich it in here and get 2 boards. Kind of depends on what your preference is. Either way, just make sure that you have at least 1 board, because you're going to need a little bit extra thickness, for it when you're doing it. Now, I did it before and I did just 1 board, so I'm going to stick with that. So it looks like I'm 2.2 centimeters. For the spine. Okay. Now that we've got our measurements for our spine, and this measurements here for the width and length are going to be for the front and the back both. One problem that I've had is I, for some reason, am absolutely terrible at cutting. For whatever reason, I still manage to end up getting everything off whenever I cut. So I've decided to upgrade my laser, and I'm going to cut this chipboard with the X-Tool M1 Ultra. So we're going to see how that comes out, because I do like using various tools, and I've just been frustrated at myself. So instead of quitting or just complaining about not being able to get nice square cuts, I'm going to do something about it, and we're going to do this on the laser. So I'm going to take you down there and we're going to continue on. Okay, we are back from the laser engraver, and it really did do a great job as far as cutting these pieces to the right size and making them nice and square too. So next thing we're going to do is we're going to pick out our book cloth so we can decide what we want it to be, what color we want it to be covered in. We got some green, black, gray, and blue. I think I'll cover it in blue. Blue's my favorite color, so we're going to go that way. Now this book cloth here I got from Amazon, and it's not very big, and so it's just perfect for this project because any smaller and it wouldn't work. So now at this point we have to get the correct spacing. So what I did was I actually bought some of these clear acrylic spacers for bookbinding, which are pretty nice, but one of the things that I figured out from the last time was I didn't get all the spacing correct. So one of the things that I changed was I think I used about a 5mm spacing or so. This time I've gone with an 8mm spacing for the in-between sections between the front and back covers and the spine here. So this is going to be my new spacing for this. And new spacing for all the way around is about 15mm. So that is another change that I made. I think I tried, around 10mm before, and it really didn't give me a lot to work with. So I saw another lady doing this, and she was using 8 and 15, and it seemed to work out pretty good, and that's going to be all the way around as well. So I printed out some of these 15mm spacers also in order to have the correct spacing all the way around. So this is how we're going to do this. So I'm going to take the 15mm spacers and put them on here, so that way I know that I've got some overhang here, and we're going to get the all the way around spacing first. So we got plenty there. And here. So now what I'm going to do is I am going to start gluing these down, and then after I get the board glued to the book cloth, then I'll come back and cut it so that way I don't have everything moving around on me. I'm going to try to make it a little bit easier on myself. So let's see how that goes. To help myself out, I'm going to put some weights on here. These weights are called 1, 2, 3 blocks. They are used by machinists, and they are very accurate as far as 1 inch by 2 inches by 3 inches. But in this case, sometimes I might use them for other things, but here I'm using them as weights to keep everything in line as I'm working. And I'm just going to double check, make sure that everything is in line first, because once I go to glue, I don't want to be trying to mess around when it comes to the glue ups. Okay, so first things first, I'm going to glue the spine in. And I'm just going to do this all in place. You can also take a pencil and draw a line so you know where to go. I'm just going to use the spacers to help keep everything aligned. Okay, now I'm going to take my weights off. I'm going to flip it over and try to use my bone folder and try to get it laying down nice and flat. Okay, now we're going to start working on the overhang. We're going to start with the top and the bottom first. Well, before we do that, actually, before I forget, gotta trim off the edges. And it's a good idea to have some parchment paper, where to put it, up underneath here, because we are going to glue in this direction as well, so we can keep our mat clean. And once again, I actually forgot something else. We need to cut the corners. So one of these days I'll be able to do this and not forget a step. Maybe. Okay, let's try again. And so go ahead and start getting the creases made as well. Okay, now we want to hit both sides. Before we do, we're going to have to fold these in. Now, in folding these in, I do like to put just a little dab in here and help it out. Oops, that wasn't a dab. Now we do the same thing on the other side. Okay, now that we've got all this glued up, now it's time to put it in the book press and let it set overnight. I'll be back with you once it's all glued up. Alright, now we've got it out of the press, and got a little dust nibs on it, all pretty good. Looks like it's already the case. So now the next thing we're going to do is we're going to take our text block, and we're going to actually glue the spine cloth down, and we're going to glue the whole thing in. So now we just have to make sure that everything's going to get lined up. And it's going to fit like it's supposed to. And one thing I forgot to get some extra parts of paper underneath here. Now it's time to put it back into the book press, and this is where my second 3D printed item is going to come into place. We got to have the hinge right here, and so when I put it in, the hinge needs to get molded. So I made these so that way I can put it in there when it gets pressed. So that way we actually have a hinge, because that was one of the places where I made a mistake before. So let's get this back in the book press and let it dry. Okay, we're back, and the book is now out of the book press. It's looking pretty good. The cloth came out looking pretty good. I need to clean up my mat here. But everything is pretty good. The corners came out well. The spacing is pretty good. Not 100% perfect, but that's okay. Perfection is not what we're going for. We're going for improvement. So, I did have 2 mistakes. Well, one mistake, one thing that can be improved. First mistake was whenever you're gluing on your end papers here, what you're going to do is you're just, as you saw before, folding the end papers, and then you're gluing the fold side to the spine, or to the side of it rather, but on the spine side of it. Well, on the front cover, I actually flipped that. So I had the open side, if you will, of the folded paper glued to towards the side of the spine, and instead of having the folded side. So I decided to try to give that a fix. I did have that on camera, trying to show the fix, but my battery died, so bye-bye footage. So anyways, I did take my X-Acto knife, and I actually just slid it right down the side to see if I can fix it. Now, whenever we're doing these things, I hope I can encourage you here to give things a try. Don't just say, oh, this has made a mistake, and then just not know what to do, or just put it to the side. Anytime we have these, always try to do like I'm doing and have items that are going to be for practice. So that way, in a case like this right here, cut it. See what happens. Don't be afraid to make mistakes and say, can I fix this? Have something in mind, even if it's the wrong thing, and give it a try, because that's exactly how we learn. And that's the exciting thing, is learning, because next time we can say, hey, I need to remember that. Let's not do that again. So that was the one mistake that I made. The second thing is not so much a mistake, but somewhere where I can improve. And I know exactly what I could do and why it came out the way it is. And I'll explain. And that is my spine here. The spine is really not wide enough, because you can see that I've got the creases in here that I used my tool, which is over there, which I just put into here when I put the when I clamped it down. And that gave me this crease, or what I like to call the hinge, which you can see the hinge is working nicely, but it could be better. And why is because the spine, I did not cut it wide enough. When I did it, I put it on here and I measured it plus 1 thickness of 1 piece of chipboard. Unfortunately, later on I found out that really I didn't cut it wide enough. So next time I do it, what I think I'm going to do to try to fix this issue, or try to make it better, is maybe what I'll do is I'll take 2 pieces, pretend these are chipboard, and put them on either side of it, and then put the whole thing into my press over here, so that way I can clamp it in, and I can get it not too tight, but just clamp it, and then take some digital calipers, which I have purchased online. They're pretty cheap. You can get them dirt cheap for like 20 bucks. I think I bought the iGagey version. I'm not sponsored by anybody, by the way, but I got those so that way I can try to get a better measurement. So I can just clamp it like this and then take the measurement. I can either do 1 board or I can do 2 boards. Either way, I might give both of them a try, and then measure it this way with it clamped together, lightly clamped together, as opposed to trying to use the ruler and put it up here. I think that might be a better way to go. So I'll give that a try next time I do it. So that just gives me something else to try, some other way to improve. Now that this is complete, and overall it is pretty good. It lays down nice and flat. Like I say, not 100% perfect, but that's okay. But it lays down flat. You can actually read the book well, even with your hands off. So I'd say that this right here has definitely been an improvement over the other one, and I am quite happy. Now, I'm going to try one new thing, and that is going to be heat transfer vinyl, because now that I have just this nice, smooth, good-looking cover on here, well, what is the book? You know, now I have to open up the book to see, oh, it's the Bible. Okay. Now, to complete that, I want it to say Holy Bible on the front and maybe even across. So, since I've just bought a X-Tool, X-Tool also has the little heat press iron. So I bought that and some heat transfer vinyl, and I'm going to try cutting that out and getting it attached to it. So that's going to be our next step. Okay, we're back, and I have now gone and printed out my image here to go on my book, and I forgot to hit the record button. So I am sorry about that. One of these days I'll get YouTube right. I'm not sure when that'll be though. Okay, so moving on, the next thing is we're going to have to now adhere it to the book. And so what I've got is the X-Tool mini press. I'm hoping I'm going to be able to get this right. Every time I look up anything about the heat transfer vinyl, it's always people putting it onto shirts or clothes of some sort. I'm putting it onto a book. I have seen that done, but it's usually not like a tutorial on how to do it. So I'm not doing that here either. I am learning. I just been figuring out how to actually print out the heat transfer vinyl. Made a couple of mistakes there. First one was when I put it into my M1 Ultra, I put it down this side first, and you're supposed to put it down this side, or the transfer plastic, however you want to say it, side of the vinyl sheet goes down, not up. Figured that out. Also, the first time I did it, I did not flip the image as far as where it says Holy Bible, and so if I'd put it on, it would have come out upside down. So there's two things that I did learn on that. Got the manuals. It is well packaged, like pretty much like everything X-Tool does, seems to be packaged very well. That is pretty cool. Got a cable and a little box here. I'm not sure what that's for yet. Got the little mini iron. This right here is to set the iron into when it's hot and you're waiting to use it. And the version that I bought, my understanding is you can use this by itself, but I bought this little version here, which has a box for being able to set your temperature, so it's not just either on or off. You can actually set it to where you want it to be. So I'll have to try to figure out how to set this up. All right, we've got this thing set up. It was not as difficult as I thought it was. The little bitty box was the transceiver that went in here that allows me to connect it to the box here. So now I've got the thing set on 300 degrees and it is now green, showing that I've got temp. I can feel it. So, mind you, this is my first try, so give me some grace if it doesn't work right. So I want to get this centered up. So it's going to be about here. Let's see. It's going to be about here. Okay, so this will be my center line. And I'm going to eyeball it as far as the height. Okay, now from what I've seen, it looks like I need to press it down for a few seconds and then take it off and let it cool down. Then I can set it on here for around 30 seconds or so. Okay. Nice and warm. I'm going to let it cool down a little bit. Supposedly, if we don't let it cool down enough, then everything can kind of pull off. All right, it is on there. Still a little warm, but everything came off nicely. Could feel some of the heat coming through on the back side of the back side of it there, and we do have to be careful because we do have glue on the thing, so we could end up, you know, melting the glue on the back, causing bubbles or something, so we don't want to do that. So we're going to let it cool down a little bit more. All right, it's cooled down. Now when doing shirts and things like that, from what I've seen, they usually do this for about 30 seconds or so, where they put the wax paper down and then pretty much just let it sit there for about 30 seconds. This is a trial, and being that I've got a book, still got the glue on the back, I don't want to go for that long because I'm afraid that it is going to start causing problems. So, well, this is a trial, so I'm just going to have to get it. So I'm going to turn the timer down to about half the time. Okay, I'm going to give it a little bit of time to cool down, and then we'll see where we're at. Okay, now the thing is cooled down and everything is looking really, really good. It feels good. You can almost can't even feel, it's raised up a little, but you almost can't even feel it almost. So as you can see, it came out looking really good, smooth. The back side here, there's no bubbling up of the glue or anything like that. No loss of adhesion. So that turned out extremely well. So for the overall thoughts on this project, everything went really well. The only thing that, the main two things are, one is just making sure that I get the spine measured out correctly. And two, and I don't know why I did this, but I got the end papers flipped around, so fixing those two things are going to be the thing for me to do on the next one. I am going to continue to practice, but I do have a larger project coming up that's going to be a gift for somebody, so I'm hoping that y'all will stick around for that. So, like I said, overall quite happy with the project, and it does look good. I don't get to really learn a whole lot from the from the heat transfer vinyl because it actually went extremely well. So I can't say, hey, this is something to look out for or to not, because it actually went well. So thank you so much for coming along this journey with me. Still got a lot longer to go. I hope y'all continue to work with me and to enjoy the videos. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see y'all again next time in the workshop.